previous tutorial, we were able to verify that our database was working by running the app over and over again, and then each time displaying a toast showing an ever-increasing tasks. If I just do that one more time to show you. Number of tasks now 6. However, this is not a very efficient way to verify that our database operations are working. Maybe you would want to see what each of the tasks are, or maybe later on we would display all of our tasks in a list, but you would have to run the app each time to see that things are working. And I'm here to show you very quickly and easily that there is a better way. I'm going to minimize the emulator. We don't need this for the rest of this tutorial. At the bottom, we've seen the various panes like the run pane, logcat, build sometimes. There's another very useful one called app inspection. So if you go ahead and click into this, and you'll need to wait a moment as it connects to all the running things. And for me in the top left, it did find my running device, which for me is my Pixel 7 emulator. And it's also found the running process, which is our get it done app, com.vinnorman.getitdone. Okay? You can stop them there. You can move to different devices if you have multiple ones connected. But for me, I just have the one device connected. And then by default, it is on the database inspector for me. We have network inspector, background task inspector, but we want it to be on the database inspector. So now that we're in this view, if I go ahead and run the app, network inspector, different devices, it found the running process, logcat, build sometimes. There's another, I'm going to minimize the emulator. We don't need this for the rest of this tutorial. At the bottom, we've seen the various panes like the run pane, logcat, build sometimes. There's another very useful one called app inspection. So if you go ahead and click into this, and you'll need to wait a moment as it connects to all the running things. And for me in the top left, it did find my running device, which for me is my Pixel 7 emulator. And it's also found the running process, which is our get it done app, com.vinnorman.getitdone. Okay? You can stop them there. You can move to different devices if you have multiple ones connected. But for me, I just have the one device connected. And then by default, it is on the database inspector for me. We have network inspector, background task inspector, but we want it to be on the database inspector. So now that we're in this view, if I go ahead and run the app and go back to the app inspection, well, now things are connected nicely. So just to confirm that flow, you need to go to the app inspection and then choose your device, then run the app. And then once you do that, you will see in our database inspector, there's a list of databases. And for me, it's just the one, get it done database. The database represented by this stack of circular images, a bit like a disk drive. And then within that, we have our list of tables. You can ignore the room master table. That's some system stuff that the room library does to manage your overall database. But for us, we can see we have our task table. And when we double click on this, we can see a nice visual representation of our table. A bit like a spreadsheet that we saw earlier on when we first learned about databases. We have our columns, task ID, title, description is starred, and then we have all of our records. Some task, another task, another task, a third task. So we could go ahead and provide a more detailed task. So I'll go to the code, I'll do some line breaks, and I'll put all the parameters in. So we'll have a description that says some funky description. I'll change the title to my cool title, and we'll say is starred can be true in this case. And so when I run this now, and running the app always opens the run pane, so I'll have to click back to app inspection. Wait a moment, my task table has loaded automatically, and if I scroll to the bottom, I can see my cool title, some funky description, and now isStarred is 1, representing true. So a wonderful little tool that a surprising amount of Android engineers don't know exists. I've worked on many a team where some junior engineers verify the updates of their database by showing them inside the app. You don't need to do this. The database inspector allows you to visually see the contents of your database, all of your tables, and then all of the rows, all of the records inside your tables. Okay? So quick and easy, that is the database inspector within Android Studio, and we can use this anytime that we want to check that our database is working correctly. We can add some new data, and we can confirm it in the database here. We don't need to figure out displaying it in the app to confirm this. Okay? So nice and easy. We're now ready to crack on and get all of the functionality of our Get It Done app working. Okay, we can press ahead now with the functionality of our app. So the first thing we'll do for now is just remove this entire thread. We don't want to be creating tasks and getting all tasks and showing a toast every time we start the app. So we'll delete all of this. And it's going to be useful to us to have our task DAO available in the entire main activity, so as a class property. So we could do something like a lateinit variable for the database. So we'll do private lateinit var for our database. This will be the get it done database, and then we'll simply assign it in onCreate. As for the task DAO, if I just cut that code for now, we could actually make a lazy variable for this. So private val our task DAO of type task DAO, and this can be by lazy. And then the first time the task DAO is accessed, it will simply be the database.getTaskDAO. So that's a simple way to make the task DAO available to us. Remember, with lazy properties, this will only be created the first time it's accessed. So we're not going to run into any issue where somebody's trying to access the task DAO before we have our database, as the database happens in onCreate and there's no task DAO commands before that. So this code here should be absolutely fine. So moving on now, we want to actually add tasks within the app. And at the moment we have a show add task dialog function, should be absolutely fine. So moving on now, we want to actually add tasks within the app. And at the moment we have a show add task dialog function, but at the moment we are using the material alert dialog builder, which will do a dialog in the middle of the screen. If I just load the emulator, so pressing plus gives us our dialog in the middle, like that. However, if we look at the app that we're trying to build, I'll just open the Google Tasks app that I have on this emulator. Pressing the floating action button actually shows a bottom sheet dialog. I'll just close the keyboard for one moment. So it's this curved bottom sheet dialog, and we've got a few things there. We've got a new task, edit text, a few buttons. Pressing the multi-line button will give us the chance to add a description or details as they have it. We have the ability to star it there. Okay, so I can do some new task and then save with the button. So this is a new type of dialog, the bottom sheet dialog. So in this short tutorial, we'll quickly see the basics of how to create a new bottom sheet dialog, and then in the next tutorial, we'll look to style it so it looks the same as this. Okay, so back to Android Studio, we can go ahead and delete the entire material alert dialog builder block. We'll leave the dialog binding for now. We will reuse that when it comes to styling our bottom sheet dialog. Now, there is no builder when making the bottom sheet dialog. The way you would do it is you would first of all make a bottom sheet dialog object like that, and it needs one thing, which is context. So we'll just say this, and this will give us a new bottom sheet dialog object that we can start working with. So we'll go ahead and assign this to a local variable. So we'll just call it dialog for now. And then very simply, we can do dialog.setContentView and then pass in some kind of view. So we can do our dialog binding.root, similar to what we did with the material alert dialog. And then to show that, we would simply do dialog.show. And what this will do is it will convert our dialog now to a bottom sheet dialog, and we can take a look at how that works and the sort of behavior and styling that we get for free when using the Material 3 theme and the bottom sheet dialog. It's going to just have a simple text input edit text, the outlined box that we had before, so it's not going to look like the Google Tasks dialog yet, but let's take a quick look and see what this bottom sheet dialog looks like. So run. Okay, and when I press the floating action button now, well, I can see we have this bottom sheet dialog. It grays out the background, we get these curved corners because we're using a Material 3 theme, and then our content view is inside the bottom sheet dialog. In the Google Tasks version, they show their keyboard by default, so we'll look to do that as well in our version. But as you can see, the dialog is now at the bottom of the screen, which can be a lot easier for users who are operating large phones with their thumbs, as this will be closest to their hands. Clicking outside the dialog will dismiss the dialog, just like our alert dialog did, and also you can slide it by clicking and holding, so the user can swipe it down or swipe it up. So it's quite a nice user experience. Let's move on now in the next tutorial and get it looking exactly like the Google Tasks layout, and we'll do that in our existing dialog binding. Okay, we're now in a position to style our bottom sheet dialog, and for that we'll reuse our existing dialog binding. So by control clicking or command clicking on this dialog add task binding class, that will take us straight into the layout file, and we can get to work here. The first thing I'm going to do is replace the linear layout with a constraint layout to give us more control. I'll leave the layout width and height as match parent. That works fine inside our dialogs. I'll increase the padding a little bit to 24 dp, and we don't need the orientation attribute in the constraint layout. That doesn't do anything. And then we can go ahead and delete all of the content for now. So first of all, if we quickly look at the Google Tasks app, I'll just close the keyboard for now. So we can see we have what looks like a simple edit text. This doesn't appear to be using the text input layout. This is just a plain old-fashioned edit text. So we'll do the same. And the edit text appears to have a hint or a placeholder, so when I start typing, that disappears. Okay. We've got 3 buttons. One of them corresponds to scheduling when the task is going to take place, and we won't be doing that functionality in our version of the Tasks app. We will have the ability to add details or description, and it seems that clicking this multi-line icon then shows another edit text that was previously hidden. And we will also have our star tasks, so we'll have the star icon as well. Okay. And then we have a button to save the task. It's grayed out when there are no task details or anything is starred, but as soon as I add any details at all, either a description, task title, then that save button becomes available. So a couple of edit texts, a couple of icon buttons or image buttons, and then a simple text button at the bottom right that says save. So let's go now and try and build this out. So the first thing I'll do is put the shell of all the components here. So as mentioned, we have an edit text, and we'll make the width match parent, but the height just wrap content. I'll do a self-closing tag, and we'll immediately constrain this. So first of all, we'll actually give it an ID. This is our edit text task title, and we'll do the top to the top of the parent. And because we're doing match width, we don't need to constrain it horizontally. We get a little warning that says missing autofill hints. Because this isn't a text input layout with a corresponding wrapping text input layout, which has the hint that we've seen before, then the Android system kind of doesn't know what type of data is going in here. And Android likes to do things like autofill if you have first name, last name, phone number. You'll have seen this maybe in some of the apps where if you load up a new app and you start to type one field, it will fill out all of them. We're not going to have any sort of autofill in these edit texts. These are brand new tasks, so there's a useful little attribute. And you can also discover this by doing Alt-Enter and seeing the options. But we can set the important for autofill attribute to no. So we'll say it's not important for autofill, and then that gets rid of one of the warnings. The other warning says that we're missing an accessibility label, but if we provide a hint, well, that's going to kill two birds with one stone. It's going to give us our placeholder, and it's going to get rid of that missing accessibility label. This means users with visual impairments. If there's no label or hint or anything on an edit text, and usually with text input edit text, we wrap it in a text input layout, so that problem is not an issue. But yes, you need to have some sort of label or hint for plain or edit texts. So we'll do that. We'll put a hint that says new task. And the final warning we're getting is that this edit text doesn't specify an input type. So we'll go ahead and do input type, and it can just be plain old text. So then the system will know when they tap on this to show a normal text keyboard. Of course, if it was a phone number field, you could do text input phone number, and then you'd have a number keyboard, okay? But setting the input type, setting the hint, and setting important for autofill to no gets rid of all of our warnings for our plain old edit text. Some of those warnings you don't get when using the text input layout, so we've not seen some of these things for quite a while. But that's looking good. I'll also go ahead and extract that string. So we'll just say this is our dialog add task title hint. Okay, and that gets rid of all of our warnings. So I'll go ahead now and copy all of this to save a bit of time, and copy it again for our description field. We'll change the ID to be edit text task description, or maybe we should call it details to be in line with the tasks app. And now the constraint will be top to the bottom of, and we'll delete that, and we'll start typing edit text task title, so at ID, and then that jumps to underneath the task title. We'll worry about any sort of margins and styling later. We'll just change the hint to be dialog add task details hint, and looking at the emulator, that hint says just simply add details. So I'll use this error to create a new string resource, and that can be add details. I can see from the emulator it appears to be a smaller font for the add details, but again, we'll worry about that kind of styling in just a moment. Then we need a couple of buttons for our icon buttons, the one that shows the add details text field and the star button. So the easiest way to do this is with a new thing. I'm not sure we've used it before, called an image button. We'll set the width and the height to wrap content. So wrap content, wrap content. We need to constrain it vertically and horizontally. So we'll do top to the bottom of the edit text task details. And we'll do start to the start of the parent. And we'll quickly give it an ID. So this will be our button to show details, self-closing tag. And we don't have an icon right now. We'll create those in just a moment, but I'm going to go ahead and copy this. So another image button, and this can be the star task button. And now, rather than doing top to the bottom of the edit text and doing start to start to parent, I'll delete both of those. And we'll do top to the top of the other button, and also the start to the end of the other button. And that will ensure our buttons are aligned to each other. So we only need to change the padding on one of them. I showed you that trick previously in the last challenge. Okay, so we have these two strange, very small grey things with a background. Next, we're going to make a couple of icons, set the icons on these buttons, and then we'll remove that grey background. So let's head over to our resource manager. We'll go add new vector asset, and we'll click the clip art button, wait for that to load. And the icon that we need, I happen to know, is the one that says notes. You can see it's that 2 lines with a shorter third line. But we'll rename this to be IC, short for icon. We'll go add new vector asset. And we'll click the clip art button, wait for that to load. And the icon that we need, I happen to know, is the one that says notes. You can see it's that and the icon that we need, I happen to know, is the one that says notes. You can see it's that 2 lines with a shorter third line. But we'll rename this to be IC, short for icon, and we can call this our details. So icon details, next, and then finish. And we'll do another one for this star. So vector asset, click again. We can type star, and that star border one, or star outline, appears to be the same. I'll go for star outline, and we can again call this IC underscore, and then star. Next, finished. So we have our source. This is IC details is the first one, and we can see there we have the icon inside this button. We'll remove the grey background in just a moment. And you know what? I can see on the left in my resource manager that the previous icons we'd added, I actually named them with icon underscore and then what it is. So I really don't like having 2 different naming conventions. So that's my mistake. So a quick and easy way to rename this drawable is to click on the name of it here and do Shift F6. And then we can rename this to icon details. That's better. I'll do the same for the star button. So I don't otherwise. And typing null, you actually need to do @null for some reason in XML. Usually when you're typing things that refer to code, and null is a code thing, it does usually start with some sort of @ symbol, typically. So by doing @null, we can see then the grey background disappears, which is fantastic. We'll sort the padding out in just a moment. We have an error because we're missing a content description. Visually impaired users who are scanning the screen with their fingers to find all the touch points, they do need to have something read to them when they discover these buttons. So we will immediately apply this. You can use the error, so Alt-Enter and then set content description, or you could do it manually. And this will be the add details description. I'll copy that, put it into this one. I'll do an auto format in just a moment. So this will be the star task button. And then I'll quickly extract these to the strings resource file. Extract the resource. So this is our dialog add task details button. And then this can be our dialog add task star button. Always good to do best practice. I think I can close the resource manager now. So we've almost got all of the things that we need in our dialog. We just need the save button. So I'll use a nice shiny material button. That one there. We'll do width wrap content and height wrap content. I will quickly put the text in. So this will be save. And now we want this to be centered in the middle of those icons. And a nice way we can do this is with opposing constraints. If we do top to the that one there. We'll do width wrap content and height wrap content. I will quickly put the text in, so this will be save. And now we want this to be centered in the middle of those icons. And a nice way we can do this is with opposing constraints. If we do top to the top of the button show details, and we do bottom to the bottom of button show details, even though the button is bigger than the icons, it will center itself around it. So then we can simply do end to the end of the parent, and then we can do a self-closing tag. And you can see with that blue dotted line there, it's centered in those icons. We'll do some padding for those icons in a moment. And we can also see that we need to change this to a text button. So we can make the style, and we can start typing material 3, and then button, and I can see there's a dot text button. And when I do that, we have our nice simple text button. And if I put some padding top, or margin top rather, on the show details button, say 12 dp, well, that's going to move everything down. I actually think that's too much padding, so we'll do margin top of 8 dp. That looks better, and we'll also give, well, that's done. And then button, and I can see there's a dot text button. And when I do that, we have our nice simple text button. And if I put some padding top, or margin top rather, on the show details button, say 12 dp, well, that's going to move everything down. I actually think that's too much padding, so we'll do margin top of 8 dp. That looks better, and we'll also give some margin top to our details, our second edit text, so margin top 8 dp. Yeah, that's better. And the text is a bit smaller on the add details edit text, so we'll do text size, and I think it's 14 sp by default. Say 12 dp. We have our nice simple text button, and if I put some padding top, or margin top rather, on the show details button, say 12 dp, well, that's going to move everything down. I actually think that's too much padding, so we'll do margin top of 8 dp. That looks better, and we'll also give some margin top to our details, our second edit text, so margin top 8 dp. Yeah, that's better. And the text is a bit smaller on the add details edit text, so we'll do text size, and I think it's 14 sp by default. No, it looks like 16 sp by default. So actually 14 sp will be ideal. Yeah, that looks very nice. And I'm wondering if maybe the text size by default is actually 17. If I just change the text size in this to 16 sp, yeah, that's a bit smaller, and I think that's a bit neater. It looks better having a subtle difference in size between the task title and the task details. The final little thing, and this is a new bit of learning for us, is it's possible to show and hide views, any view pretty much, in XML. And there's two ways you can do this. For either way, you need the visibility attribute, and you can see we have three different possibilities. Visible, which is what all views are by default. Invisible, and what this will do is it will hide it, but it will keep all the space. So we have the space where the add details edit text was, but that's not ideal. And so the third type of visibility is one called gone, which is very useful, and that will behave as if the view isn't in the layout at all. So I tend to find myself using the gone attribute much more than the invisible attribute, as typically if you don't want a view on the screen, then you don't want it taking up the space. You want it to completely disappear, and then when you show it, which I can do with the visible attribute, well, then it just pushes the views down like that. So as we know from the Google Tasks app, by default it doesn't show the add details edit text, so we'll set the visibility to gone, but just so we can see what we're doing in this layout file, we'll use tools, that special namespace of tools, and I'll import that. And then we can do visibility visible. So when we're working in this layout file, we can still see it here, but by default, when we launch the dialog, it won't be shown. And in the next tutorial, we can do the code to show and hide that. And the final thing I think we need is a bit of padding between the two icons. So if I go to the second image button, the star button, and do margin start, maybe I think we need to get the Google to find myself using the type of visibility map interface of tools, and I'll import that. And then we can do visibility visible. So when we're working in this layout file, we can still see it here, but by default, when we launch the dialog, it won't be shown. And in the next tutorial, we can do the code to show and hide that. And the final thing I think we need is a bit of padding between the two icons. So if I go to the second image button, the start button, and do margin start, maybe something like 8 dp again. That's possibly still a bit close. Let's do 12 dp. Yeah, that's a bit better. It'll be easier for the user to touch the two things if there's a bit more space between them. And we'll go ahead now and quickly run this to see what our new dialog looks like. And I think what I'll do is I'll very quickly delete the visibility gone for now, as we don't have the code to show this yet. So let's see what our complete dialog looks like. So I'll delete that line and then run the app. And so now when I press the floating action button, that looks pretty close to the version we have in the Google Tasks app. And then clicking the field means we can start typing our task. Okay, so fantastic, a nicely styled bottom sheet dialog. We now need to go back to the programming code, put the logic in to show and hide the add details, edit text, as well as have the functionality that when they click the save button, we go ahead and then save that to the database. So let's do that next.